be talking about metastatic triple-negative breast cancer, how we should approach it is in 2021. And in this talk tour, we will be talking about the brief introduction as well as biological subtypes, newer and conventional therapies, prognosis, algorithm in 2021. So 15% of all breast cancers do not express ER/PR and HER2. And TNBC paradox is that it is essentially a very chemoresponsive tumors. However, it is heterogeneous and with poor outcomes. So in early triple negatives also, 5-year recurrence rates is up to the tune of 30 to 50%, which peaks at around 2 to 3 years from diagnosis. And in metastatic setting, they rapidly progress on chemotherapy with short median OS between 12 to 18 months. So this slide is showing the clinical, epidemiological, and therapeutic heterogeneity, and they are associated with the worst outcomes, especially in young women, and where the growth rate is very fast. They are acquired chemotherapy resistant and fastly, and the ethnicity, they are more commonly associated with African and Asian descent. So the site of first TNBC recurrence as per the NCCN data, so it is more common in viscera. So lung, brain, etc. is more common than the bone. About the molecular heterogeneity, so Peru et al. Using their gene expression profiling, they classified breast cancer into 4 prognostically distinct intrinsic molecular subtypes. We know that, and TNBCs and basal tumors have a lot of biological similarities, like genomic instability, prevalence of high grade and markedly proliferative tumors, and expression of some targets like EGFR, etc., and high frequency of BRCA mutations. So this cartoon is showing the genomic heterogeneity of TNBCs and identification of novel targets. So we can see that in basal types also, this is not one subtype. There is basal 1, basal 2, and they are enriched for gene related to growth factor signaling like EGFR and MET. There are other subtypes which are Claudin low, M type, which is less proliferative, and they are enriched for stem cell features, while there is a high TILS variant, which is immune activated, and AR type, which is androgen receptor expressing, and it is least proliferative. So what are the genetic events in TNBCs? So the most commonly observed genetic event in TNBCs are TP53 mutation, which is reported in 80%, and MYC amplification, which is reported in 40%. And some less frequent molecular events are like AR signaling, DNA damage response defects, PIK3CA, AKT mutations, EGFR and FGFR2 amplifications, and unique immunogenicity, which is encountered in some basal subtypes. And this provides a good rationale to investigate the role of immune checkpoint inhibitors in these tumors. So what are the treatment options? So targeting DNA damage and response defects, for example, platinums and PARP inhibitors. So platinum-based treatment, there is a famous TNT clinical trial, which is investigated platinum versus docetaxel. And this is the survival curves. And it was found that in BRCA positives, there is a, response rates to platinum is superior. However, in others, it is almost similar. So PARP inhibitors is the other DNA damage response defects, targeting agents, and the intrinsic genomic instability in basal TNBCs have been strongly linked to DNA repair defects. And basal intrinsic subtype, it is enriched for tumor with BRCA mutations. Majority of these patients are having BRCA mutation, around 75%. And these BRCA1 and BRCA2 are among the DNA repair genes, which are involved in the repair of double-stranded DNA breaks. So when both the BRCA genes, which are key components of DNA homologous recombination repair, which is an error-free process, which is essential for maintaining genomic stability. And when they are having some defects or there are BRCA mutations, this, acquire the characteristics of genomic instability. So this is the mechanism of action, the synthetic lethality. So when homologous repair recombinant deficient cells, that is BRCA mutated, they depend upon NHEJ pathway to repair double-stranded break of which is essentially error-prone, and error-prone and genomic instability is the resultant of this error-prone mechanism, and the mutation keep on accumulating, which leads to cancer generation. So this slide is showing the comparison of 3 phase 3 studies of PARP inhibitors in treatment of metastatic breast cancer with germline BRCA mutations, so Olympiad, AMBRECA, and Brocard 3. And we can see here the PFS figures, which are essentially comparable and similarly the OS data. So it is showing that PARP inhibitors have shown promise in these randomized trials. This is showing the response rates among the triple negative versus and also in a patient who received prior platinum versus no prior platinum. So this is the Olympiad in a little bit detail. So we know that the olaparib here is compared with the chemotherapy, which is the treatment of physician's choice. However, the concerns here is that carboplatinum as a control arm was not chosen, and which would have been ideal control to test the efficacy of olaparib. However, this trial used a control of physician's choice, which was not a true choice because the use of carboplatinum was specifically disallowed. So OS was similar between the groups and median of 19.3 versus 19.6 months. And 95% confidence interval for hazard ratio of OS spans from 0.63 to 1.29, meaning that data are compatible with not only a 37% reduction in mortality, but also a 29% increase in mortality. So these are the very important points one must remember. This is the AMBRECA trial. So it is the largest randomized trial which evaluated a PARP inhibitor in patients with advanced breast cancer, a germline mutation in BRCA1 and 2. And talazoparib resulted in prolonged progression-free survival versus physician's choice of therapy by blinded central review. So here the hazard ratio of 0.54 and p-value of 0.001 could be acquired, which has shown the efficacy. So what is the PARP inhibitor versus platinum in TNBC patients? There is an ongoing debate about this. And data from ovarian cancer patient has clearly demonstrated their sensitivity to PARP inhibitors is dependent on sensitivity to prior platinum therapy. And in a study of 50 patients, overall response rate of 15% if the patients were platinum refractory versus 60% if they are platinum sensitive was noted. Abrazo study could further confirm prior platinum sensitivity as a strong predictor to ensure efficacy of PARP inhibitor treatment, and overall response to talazoparib was 48% in sensitive disease, which is progression after more than 6 months following the last dose of platinum versus 10% in platinum resistant disease. So it appears that no disease progression for more than 6 months after platinum treatment is a very important clinical biomarker to predict sensitivity to subsequent PARP inhibitors, which strongly suggests the presence of some cross resistance between platinum and PARP inhibitor. So inferences here is that consciously Olympiad and AMBRECA studies have included minority of platinum pretreated patients. They're somewhere around 16% and 21%. And both the studies, there is clinical evidence of platinum sensitivity, which was required for patients inclusion. And still, nevertheless, efficacy data of PARP inhibitor in platinum pretreated patients were less pronounced in both studies, although it was still not significantly superior to TP. So in the clinical decision making, when we need to choose between the two, of course, in lower and middle income countries like ours, the cost becomes the major limiting factor. However, if in ectopic world where the cost is not a limitation, we need to consider the toxicity profile also and the quality of life. So with that respect, perhaps PARP inhibitor looks better. Although the sequence is not evidence-based, it is an extrapolation from some preclinical and clinical data demonstrating platinum sensitivity and PARP inhibitor resistant tumors also. So if cost is just not a constraint, then perhaps we can start with that. And later we can challenge with platinum. However, both the sequences can be equally practiced because there is no hardcore data which is available, and cost will remain the major limiting factor in our part of the world. What are the screening guidelines in TNBCs? So the ASCO and NCCN guidelines suggest that patients who are 60 years of age or younger and triple negative breast cancer, we should consider them for testing. But if we will practice this, then perhaps we need to send a large majority of our patients to a genetic clinic, which will flood them. So we need to consider the logistics, infrastructure also while looking and trying to follow the guidelines. What about the immunomodulation, which is the another very important addition in armamentarium? So conventionally, the breast cancer were not considered, immunogenic tumor. However, the triple negative is different in that respect also, and they are having high tumor mutational burden, high TILs as compared to other breast cancer subtypes. And RNA sequencing data from TCGA showed a high expression of PD-L1, mRNA, and TNBC in comparison to non-TNBC. So this was shown to be associated with greater cytotoxic T cell infiltrate compared with PD-L1 negative tumors. So mechanism of action of immunotherapy, I will not go into the details. As we are aware that generally, there are immune inhibitory molecules, CTLA4 and PD-L1, and the drugs which release these brakes, which are the immunobrakes into the tumor cells. They provoke immune system to take care of cancer. So these are the mechanism where checkpoint inhibitors works. So there is a peculiar immunogenomic features of TNBC which gave a strong rationale to investigate its role in these patients. And early clinical studies have shown that as a single agent, the response rates to pembrolizumab or atezolizumab was really modest in unselected previously treated metastatic TNBCs, and overall response as low as only 4.7% and 6%. However, the occasional responders of either of the agent had a 1-year survival rate of 100%. So those with even stable disease had a good 1-year survival rate of 65%. So this gives a hope that the patient who will respond may have a good chance of achieving a durable remission, which is the actually USP of immunotherapy. So in contrast to this data, second line data, the performance of frontline single agent was quite acceptable, and it is more than 20% and up to the tune of 24%. So this is the cartoon is showing the single agent response rate in first line and second line. So we are well aware that immunotherapy works better when it is in earlier lines of setting. So this is a Keynote 119 trial. It's pembrolizumab versus chemotherapy of investigator choice. And this is the second line and third line TNBC. And this is showing the data with respect to intention to treat, and also based on CPS scoring. And although study did not meet any of its primary or secondary efficacy endpoints, there is exploratory analysis of patients with CPS score more than 20, which is the 17% of study population, and it has shown that median OS of 14.9 months in favor of pembro versus chemotherapy of 12.5 months was achieved. And there is also meaningful increase in the overall response rates, 26% versus 11%. So this again we can make a note of it. So what is the potential positioning of pembrolizumab? Results of Keynote 119 trial, although not practice changing, they provide an important note concerning the potential benefit of pembro in minority of TNBC patient whose tumor are PD-L1 strong positive. And in view of acceptable safety, treating clinician may opt to use this drug as an off-label therapy beyond the frontline setting in MTNBC patients, wherein the CPS score of more than 20 by 22 C3 assay, especially if the other choices are not feasible. So to note, if the other choices are not feasible, this can be an option. However, cost effectiveness and other available options are important while we are making decisions. This is the Impassion 130 study, very much talked about, and here atezolizumab and nab-paclitaxel versus nab-paclitaxel in earlier lines, and this is the progression-free survival, and this is the overall survival. This is the second interim results, which didn't show a significant OS benefit. This is the overall survival by PD-L1 positivity. So summary results of PFS and OS for this trial. And biomarker analysis, PD-L1 IC was determined by to be highly predictive of atezolizumab and nab-paclitaxel efficacy. Majority of PD-L1 positive tumors were also, which were positive in tumor cells, were also positive in immune cells. and intratumoral CD8, but not TILs, were well correlated with PD-L1 IC, and CD8 was predictive of atezolizumab nab-paclitaxel efficacy. And while stromal TILs were only predictive for PFS benefit. So although results of Impassion 130 are certainly practice changing, it is essential to note that there is no role of atezolizumab in patients with PD-L1 negative tumors, which are around 60% of all mTNBC. And adequate PD-L1 testing exclusively by SP142 assay is extremely important, rather than by any other commercially available assay, which were recently found to have an inferior capability to predict atezolizumab benefit. A word about bevacizumab. So, although in early breast cancer, the trials have not shown a benefit in metastatic setting, there is some benefit on progression-free survival, and majority of the guidelines, they endorse it. However, we need to be cautious while we are choosing in clinics, and there is when there are limited treatment options, this could be one of the option in the armamentarium. Androgen receptors, 15% of patients express this. The LAR tumors predominantly tend to spread to lymph nodes, soft tissue, and bones, unlikely the other triple-negative subtypes. And they have apocrine features, less proliferation markers, and modest response to chemo. So this is the difference with the standard, other triple-negative subtypes. Bicalutamide, there is in some evidence in TNBC, the phase 2 trial. And this is the enzalutamide data again, a phase 2 study. So there is some challenges associated with assays to predict androgen sensitivity, and several preclinical studies have shown a crosstalk between AR signaling and RB protein function that might cause resistance to anti-androgen therapy. So proof of concept studies are planned to test the combined use of anti-androgen agents with CDK4/6 inhibitors and anti-androgen with PIK3 inhibitors as well. So there is ongoing phase 1 and 2 trial, which are investigating efficacy and safety of alpelisib plus enzalutamide in these patients. So, essentially, androgen receptor is one of the catchy target. However, so far there are challenges associated with its cutoff, its standardization in labs, etc. And also, we do not even when we give in clinic, we do not see very remarkable responses. Perhaps the population, the old, old ladies with triple negatives, slow growing, and where the other chemotherapy options are not feasible, we can try and test this option. So the PI3K/AKT/mTOR pathway in TNBC. So according to TCGA, incidence of this pathway aberration is quite high in BL tumors, and iptasertib and capivasertib are two highly selective oral pan-AKT inhibitors, which were recently tested in combination with paclitaxel phase 2 trials, that is PACT and LOTUS. So what is the AKT inhibition summary? That LOTUS PACT study provides important evidence that AKT inhibition might be able to improve patient outcomes in this difficult to treat subtypes of breast cancer, and confirmatory and adequately powered phase 3 trials are required. And on the basis of current data, paclitaxel should be considered as the chemotherapy backbone for these future studies. About antibody drug conjugates, this is also a new addition in the armamentarium. So sacituzumab govitecan, it is so TROP2 is expressed in 90% of TNBC, and IMMU 132 is an antibody drug conjugate, which is coupled with SN38, which is the active metabolism of irinotecan in this particular molecule. And this is the ASCENT trial, which has again tested this molecule in comparison to patients' treatment of physician's choice. And there is significant improvement in median OS and median PFS. So the FDA has given accelerated approval to sacituzumab govitecan for the treatment of adult patients with mTNBC who have received at least 2 prior therapies for metastatic disease. So let us simplify the metastatic TNBC through a treatment algorithm. So essential biomarkers are to confirm the TNBC phenotype, PD-L1 expression on tumor-infiltrating immune cells per Ventana SP142 assay, and germline BRCA mutation using one of the approved assay. So biomarker in question are PD-L1, which is expected in 40% around. And if this is expressing, then atezolizumab and nab-paclitaxel could be our first line choice if a cost is not a constraint. And in second line, eribulin, capecitabine, or combination of gemcitabine, carboplatin, depending upon the clinical scenario and what patient has received, upfront. If it is a germline BRCA mutation or otherwise BRCA expressing tumor, which is around 15%, then PARP inhibitor or platinum with taxane combination could be choices. And in second line, we can shift to other agent if there is a poor response of first line agent, or after achieving and again seeing relapse, or if they are suboptimal responders. Both PD-L1 and BRCA expression, which is around 7.5%, then perhaps we can start with atezo and nab-pacli, and in later line we can treat with PARP inhibitors or platinum. If both negative, which is around 50%, then these are the chemotherapy options which are remaining. So no prior adjuvant taxane or prior adjuvant taxane more than 12 months, then taxane could be an option with or without bevacizumab. And if prior taxane less than 12 months, then perhaps non-taxane based chemotherapy with or without bevacizumab, eribulin, capecitabine, combination of gem carbo, and also anthracycline if it is not previously exposed to that. In second line, there are clinical trials options and also other non-approved approaches, which could also be important, that one can test for PD-L1, and if it is CPS score more than 20%, specifically by 22 to C3, then may consider Pembro if other options not feasible. And test for AR expression, if it is more than 10, then perhaps AR inhibitors can also be options. So to conclude here, that breakthrough genomic and molecular data has led development of targeted therapies for different subsets of metastatic TNBCs. Few promising therapies have already changed treatment landscape, and many others are undergoing. Clinical developments, identification of appropriate predictive biomarkers is the key challenge for new targeted agents, and prospective validation of these biomarkers to identify the best responders to these drugs is required to realize promise of molecularly targeted therapy. Chemotherapy with carboplatin-based therapy in first line and taxane, eribulin, and others in second line are still effective treatment options for many patients, and one must remember those. This is approach to advanced. So basically, we have discussed the advancement, and we must customize our product to customers. And I acknowledge each person who is in my disease management group, or patients, families, NGOs who keep inspiring us to keep going. Thank you very much.